Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, girl. Hey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Knights of the Pageless Library. We are a little podcast dedicated to reviewing audiobooks. I am Bone Knight, and with me, as always, is Ryan Knight. And today we are looking at Shadow and Bone by Laird Bardugo, written by Laird Bardugo and narrated by Lauren Fortgang. That cannot be her name. It cannot be
Leigh
pronounced Fortgang.
Leigh Bardugo.
But I say Lay. Yeah, I want to say Lay.
I think you almost said Laird, like Laird Barron. Leigh Bardugo and Lauren Fortgang. That's how it's spelled, man.
I know,
Fortgang.
but that can't be right.
I think it is. I mean, if anybody has any argument to that, please email us and let us know. But that's how I would say it. Fortgang.
Oh, and I this is the first time I got the name of the book right. The first time.
Yeah, that's okay. Like I said, we were watching the show and Caitlin kept calling it something else too. Apparently, shadow is just not the word to use on this one.
No, in my opinion, it's not.
For anybody who's curious, this is book 1-2 of the Grisha series of books that Leigh Bardugo has written. So this is I think it's a 3-part series, but just know that it is part of a series.
And this is kind of what she likes to write, right? As like this kind of adult fantasy.
I think so. I think this is probably aimed at like not necessarily young kids, but like, teenagers and maybe a little bit older, because there's not anything like it's not like childish, but it's also not like highly adult themed, if that makes sense. It's not like Game of Thrones style.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a little bit of murder.
yeah, a little bit. And it gets a little graphic, but I wouldn't say it's not gonna like turn anyone's stomach or anything. So this let's see, when was this one written?
2012.
2012. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing also. So it's not like a brand new book, but for anyone who's curious, you've probably already seen it, that this is a new series on Netflix called Shadow and Bone. So this is the book that series is based off of.
Yeah, I haven't watched the show at all.
Yeah, I just finished the show, and I will try my best not to reference the show.
Oh,
I will
really?
try. Yeah, I'll try not to like cross over too much. So what did you think about Lauren Fortgang's performance during this one?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I thought she did pretty good. I mean, I'll say she did pretty good.
I take big issue with this being set in Russia and her only doing a Russian accent on like 2 or 3 people. If she's
I
gonna
agree.
do it, she needed to do it on everyone or not at all. I just thought
I
it was
agree.
weird.
I also had a little bit of an issue with the fact that the one of the guys is from the Shuhan, which I believe is supposed to be like Asian, and she gave him a Russian accent.
Yeah.
but some of the other people don't have Russian accents.
I don't know. Okay, the more I think about it, I didn't really like her at all. I think her like most of the talking in this book is done by men, it seems like, and her like male voice that she puts on is atrocious.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, without sounding like a completely sexist pig, that is like usually the vibe that ends up happening for me as well. Is it just almost always comes across the same to me. Is it's a very like forced male voice, which that's not her fault. It's not. And to be fair, this entire book is told from this Alina Starkov's perspective. So it's all told in the first person from her. So it really does make sense though to have a female read this, obviously.
I don't think it was like a bad choice to have like she just should have stick to her guns. I just feel like the way that she decided to portray some of the characters is just all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, and there are a lot of characters, so that's not necessarily her fault either. There are a lot of characters that need voiced. But yeah, I will say that I think it was pretty middle of the road
And
for
she's
me.
kind of inconsistent too, because sometimes she'd give him an accent, sometimes she wouldn't, or sometimes
Mhm.
it would be strong, like a strong accent, and then she would voice him again, and it would be a lot more like downplayed.
Sure.
I don't know. I thought her performance was a little all over the place. Not
Yeah.
like truly enough to pull you out of the book, but not like true like ear candy.
Right. Oh yeah, I wouldn't say it's like like I don't think it's distracting by any means.
No.
Like I said, I think she's pretty middle of the road. Like I don't think she detracted anything from the book. I just don't really think she like added anything either. Um, so the general setting of this book is pretty. It says it's sci-fi fantasy. Is that what you would call this?
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like
I-
sci-fi, not really.
No,
Fantasy, also like not really.
I
Because
mean
they
it's
try and like explain away the magic, but I feel like we'll get into it, I guess. But
yeah. I mean, I would say it leans more on the fantasy side, and like Bo just said, there is magic in this world. So it is sort of like a medieval fantasy with magic, essentially. So I guess if that's stuff you're really into, there
yeah, but
is
don't
that.
think like Lord of the Rings, because that's not right at all.
No. And we'll get into it here shortly. We'll pass the spoilers and we'll really talk about it. This book clocks in right at 9 hours and 21 minutes, so a
But
decent listen length.
about an hour of that is a preview of the next book.
That is true. Actually, yes, that is very true. Right at the end, you do get the preview for the second book in the series. So that's true. So yeah, the listening time on the main story does probably clock in right about 8 hours, a little over 8 hours. Which is not a terrible length for a book. I I would actually say that's on the short side for what the story was trying to tell, I think. But
Yeah,
that's just me.
yeah. I mean, we'll get into it, but I feel like this could have even been shorter.
Oh, okay. And again, as with most of these titles that we talk about, you could get this for free if it was like your first, Prime book that you chose. Or you could buy this one for $19.95.
Yeah, which is pretty reasonably priced.
Yeah, I would say for the length of it, that's not a terrible price. Okay, so what do you think? Easy to follow?
Yeah.
I actually think so too. And I think the fact that it's almost all first person makes it a lot easier. I think that kind of clarifies a lot of stuff because we're only really getting the perspective of one person and we're not jumping around a lot, getting a lot of different information from multiple sides. So I think that does make it pretty easy to follow what's going on with the story.
Yeah, and the story's not very complicated.
No, at its core, it's really not that complicated. What do you think? Easy listening?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I thought this one actually was it was entertaining for what it was. So I think that it is pretty easy listening. And so with that, we'll roll right into the recommendations. What do you think?
No, I cannot recommend this book.
Really? Okay.
I did not like it at all. Actually, I feel like a lot of what this book is trying to do is done a lot better by other books.
Sure.
And I don't really think this presents a lot new or interesting to me. Like I've really never really found myself wanting to listen to this. And I thought the story was really kind of predictable. And I have a
Okay.
lot of issues with this book, like a lot, especially like sitting here thinking about it now. And
Okay.
I don't know. It left me with like a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm really surprised that they would make a show out of it.
Okay. That's fair. I'm a little more lenient on this one. I thought it was pretty okay. I agree with you that pretty much all of these things in this story have been done elsewhere and probably better elsewhere. I did really appreciate the world building in this story. I actually think this would have benefited more by not being told in first person. And so that
I agree with that a lot, actually.
I just think so that we as the listener could have gathered, because the real meat of this tale is not necessarily what happens to this main hero character. It's, at least for me, it's what was happening in the world, because there's
Yeah, I agree
a
with
lot of
that.
conflicts, there's a lot of things in the world going on, but because it's told the first person perspective, we don't get a lot of it.
No, not really. Yeah, we don't really. Yeah, you
So
don't know what's happening outside of her. I don't. What's her name again?
Alina Starkov,
Alina Starkov.
um, I just think it could have benefited more from being actually told maybe in like third person, and so that we could gather what's happening on different, different parts of the world at the same time as what's going on with her. Because I mean, really, while you listen to the story, it's almost like the rest of the world is standing still while she's learning. It's like, but that shouldn't be what's happening. There should be a lot of things, a lot of movers and shakers at the same time.
Yeah, I don't. I would have liked a lot more insight into like what the dark one the dark one in general.
The Darkling.
Darkling, yeah, dark one, whatever. See, so all the names are so generic.
Well, okay, so I liked the world building as far as like, although I was reading some reviews and apparently this was to the detriment of the book, because like I don't know anything about like Russia or Russian or anything, but I liked the use of very clearly like, Russian inspired names and words for certain things, and then whether it be like Asian inspired or like Middle Eastern inspired. I liked that idea, but I agree. Then it's like, and then we also have the Darkling. I
Yeah,
was like, the what? And even Caitlin, because they mentioned that in the show, and she's like, Darkling Duck.
yeah,
I was like, oh no. Like, there was so many things that just felt
generic.
generic and out of place.
Yeah, out of place too. Like
Yeah.
overly simplified.
Yeah, exactly.
A
Whereas,
lot of this is overly simplified and then swept under the rug, and the rug is put over it, and you're not allowed to ask questions about that ever again.
right, which is kind of a disappointment. I agree. I think that there's such strong world building in this that to then have things like that, like the Darkling or some of the other terms they use that are so vague and generic, it was kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, the world building is good, but I kind of don't care what happens to this world, I'll be honest. It's like, all right, that's
Sure.
cool.
I mean, and a couple people like there's a couple people die, but like at no point do you really think that like the main character's in any trouble, and that's where it could have benefited from being like in third person, where you could have walked that line a little closer into making us think that something might happen to the main character.
Yeah. So I guess that's like, I don't know. Ryan thinks it's okay. I think it's kind of bad.
Yeah, so you get like one thumbs down and one thumbs halfway, partway. So take that as you will.
I just think what this book is trying to do, there are other books that are better. If you want to check out a good magic book, look at Harry Potter. If you want to look at check out like a dark mystery book, look at Area X instead.
Sure.
Like, I just don't see a lot of like enough uniqueness here for this really to deserve its own place.
Yeah. Actually, I brought this up while watching the show. It surprises me that this would get its own show, but like Hard Magic wouldn't.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly. Something with so much personality, and then this is what just kind of feels watered down.
exactly, yeah. I think that like Hard Magic has so much more potential to be a great show, especially like uh Netflix or Amazon where they could pump a bunch of money into it. They could make it so amazing. And then you get this as a show that just kind of is like, like, I don't know.
So you want to go into spoilers now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and pass the spoiler wall. I think everybody gets our kind of general consensus on this one. So
And so yeah, the book opens with Miss Starkov and oh God, what is his name? They're orphans.
yeah, they call him Mal.
Mal, yeah, real Russian. And yeah, they're like orphans, and they don't know their parents, and they've like lived together forever with this duke. And then we like cut forward, and they're in the army together, and she's a cartographer, and he is a tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of explain this. It's called the fold, right?
Yeah, that's what it's called, is the shadow fold.
Which at first I was like, oh man, I was getting like real Area X vibes, and then it
Sure.
turns out to be way lamer than that.
Oh yeah, way lamer than that. Like, so this is a prime example. Such an interesting idea, so watered down.
Yeah,
Like, so watered down. It's literally just like, don't go in there because the bad things will get you.
the Volcra.
The Volcra, right? Which we find out later what the Volcra are, but for right now in the story, all you need to know is that the Volcra are like the monsters that live in the Shadowfold. They're like bat type monsters.
And she has to go in. They're like making an expedition into the Shadowfold.
They're crossing it.
Right.
Because we should mention that like the Shadowfold, because she's a cartographer, which I did like this. She talks about how it's drawn on different maps. Sometimes it's a splotch. Sometimes it's. I thought that was kind of cool. But in reality, it's like this narrow but really really long wall essentially that is. It looks like a storm kind of from the outside, and it's dark inside. So it like split this country basically in two.
Yeah.
So if they want to go anywhere else, basically, they have to go through the Shadowfold to go to other places.
Yeah. And does it span the whole globe, or is it just the country there?
I think it's just a big part of that country. And then they talk about that like in the north, it ends in the Fjordan territory, and in the south, it ends in like the Shuhan territory. So I can't even remember what they are called. They're like the Russian people. They can't go north or south to get around the fold because they're also at war with both of those countries as well.
Right. So they have to go through it.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, they go through and they get attacked by the Volcra. And then we actually like don't know what happens. They get attacked, but then she wakes up and she's in handcuffs, and like a soldier is pointing a gun in her face. And this is where we get to meet like the first Grisha, right? Like the magic users. I put magic in quotes.
Okay, yeah. So we kind of already met them because technically the ship that they're on, it's a ship like a sailboat, but it's going across the sand. And that's because one of the Grisha is using their magic to push it across the sand.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're like, yeah.
So we kind of we get introduced to the Grisha, and then they also have the Inferni, the ones that use fire to protect them from the Volcra. But yeah, obviously everything went to shit, and we find out that like a large explosion of light happened when Alina was attacked by a Volcra. And then when so this part pissed me off because instead of continuing through the fold, they turned around and went back the other way.
Yeah.
So they get back to where they were, and she gets off the ship, and we find out that everybody's like, there was a large flash of light, and it came from her, and they're saying it came from Alina. So then we get introduced to the Darkling, and the Darkling, he, I can't remember what he does to her, but he basically like grabs. So
He's an amplifier,
oh yeah. Okay, first of all, yes, he's an amplifier.
which
And second,
could you not think of a better name?
I agree with you. I think
What
that
does he do? He makes their powers stronger. Should we just call him an amplifier? Sure.
right.
It's like you couldn't have wrote down like 2 more names.
Yeah, and you know me, like I don't like books. Like if I'm listening to a science fiction book, I don't like sci-fi word salad. I don't. So while I understand she's probably trying to walk the line between like fantasy word salad and keeping it pretty grounded so everybody can understand it. However, you could have come up with something a little more creative, I think.
Yeah.
And we should mention that the Darkling, I guess there's only one of them.
Yeah. He's basically King Wizard.
Okay, yeah. So, and his power is like darkness.
Well, I
and-
feel like his power is so barely explained. He can basically do anything, it seems like.
Yeah, because he also can like manipulate darkness to become physical. So,
But he's also an amplifier, which is supposed to be a specific type of Grisha. And I feel like the magic system in this makes no sense.
yeah, no, not really.
It's all very loosely explained.
Right. So the Darkling grabs her, right? And she feels like power surge in her, and then the light emits from her, right? So everybody's like, oh my gosh, she is the thing of legend. She is the sun summoner.
Yeah.
I took huge issue with this though, because there's never been a sun summoner before, but yet they talked about it all the time. They were like, "Ooh, the sun summoner
I didn't
will
even
come."
think about that. Why do
Yeah.
all the common people know what a sun summoner is then?
Yeah,
Dude, that's a good point.
because there's never been one before. She is the first one, supposedly. So I did take
Yeah,
issue
why would
with
they
that.
even have a name for it?
That's what I said. Exactly. Because she's supposed to be like a myth, right? But then it comes true, I guess. So immediately everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, the Sun Summoner can destroy the fold because she's the opposite of the darkness." So
Yeah, really like thinly veiled light versus dark immediately.
sure. So they end up taking her. She has to go with the Darkling and a bunch of his, I can't remember what they call him, but he has like his own personal bodyguards, and he has a bunch of Grisha that like are with him at all times. But on their way to the what's it called? The small palace?
Oh, no way I remember. It's probably like Castle Jeremy or something.
Well, I think that's what it's called. The small, either way, we'll call it the palace. On the way there, they get attacked by the Fjordans, and these are basically like the Vikings, is the way I understand it.
Which, why did they want? Because they were after her.
Yeah, they specifically come after her to kill her.
Why?
I don't know. Unless they kind of knew like what was going to happen in the end of the book, but how would
No,
anybody guess
that? Doesn't make any sense.
No.
And if that's the reason, then this book is worse than I thought.
I'm not sure. So she gets there. She gets to the small palace, which is basically where like all the Grisha go, which we should mention. All
it's like
little
Hogwarts.
exactly what it is. And the children are tested when they are little to see if they are Grisha or not, if they have magical powers or not.
It's not magic.
Oh, you're right. It's small science, right?
which is the dumbest shit in the world. Why?
Yeah, I kind of disappointed in that.
Okay, hang on. I want like let me walk you through this. So it's not magic, right? But only certain people have these abilities. These abilities cannot be learned. You're either born with them or you're not. How
Right.
is that not magic? Explain that to me,
Yeah, I agree.
because that doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's science.
Yeah.
What?
So we should mention though, I can't remember when it comes up, that she was tested. Her and Mal were both tested when they were little, and they were both found to not be Grisha. However, we find out after she gets here. So we got a real like Harry Potter situation on our hands. She didn't know she was magic till she was a lot older than she should have been. She sucks at using her magic, her small science.
Yeah.
And they're gonna drag it out of her, kicking and screaming. They're gonna drag her small science out of her. So once she gets here, we get a montage of her. She meets Bagra, and she learns how to fight, and she learns how to use her powers, but not very well. And she starts having an interest in the Darkling. Okay, those are like the three main takeaways from her going to the palace. And oh man, I forgot where I was going with that. I had a big thing I wanted to say for that too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she makes a couple friends, and she kind of gets better grasp on her powers, kind of. Her and the
Right.
Darkling almost bang.
Right. Yeah, because the Darkling like starts to schmooze up to her, right? Like she's the light to his dark. Like I like his symbol. I imagine his symbol as being like almost an infinity symbol, but one is dark and one is light because it's
Yeah.
like an eclipsing sun, which is kind of cool. I still hate his name. The Darkling is like the worst. I can't stand it. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, I wish you could have just gave him a name. Just name him like a person.
Yeah, it's Jeffrey.
Right. Just something. But so when she's here at the palace, right?
Oh, you want to talk about the stag?
Yeah, because she I can't remember. Oh, because she talks to Ivan, and Ivan has the bear claws, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's his amplifier.
Which I
Which-
feel like is poorly explained how the amplifiers really work.
So bad. Horribly. And I'm so
And when they
disappointed
do that
in it.
bait and switch at the end, it's like, what? Like you broke your own rules.
Exactly. Yeah, you wrote these rules and then you broke them. You broke your own world rules, which is disappointing to me. So we also should mention that like Mal he shows back up because he got hurt, in the beginning when they're crossing the fold, and then he shows back up because the Darkling wants someone to find this stag, Moritsova's herd, which has this specific stag in it, which we find out is an amplifier.
It's supposed to be the most powerful amplifier there is.
Right, which wouldn't make any sense why it would still be alive, to be honest. Anyways, Mal shows up, and Mal is like, he's upset because he's all jealous of Alina and the Darkling. Because Mal is like really liked Alina since they were little kids, right?
I guess, even though like that vibe does not come in until like the second half of the book.
Right, for sure. And the way it comes in is pretty jarring.
Oh, dude, it's yeah.
That's what I was gonna bring up earlier, though. The reason we're in this Harry Potter situation at Hogwarts, the small palace, is when Alina was tested to see if she was Grisha, she forced those feelings down so that when they tested her, it came up negative, that she's not Grisha. But Bagra drags it out of her, basically. Because Bagra is also an amplifier, so she causes Alina's powers to like flare up, essentially.
Yeah, and the dark one had done that a couple times already.
Yeah, he like because he's an amplifier, which okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, so that's why she didn't find out till later that she was Grisha, is because every time those feelings would come up inside of her, she like forced them back down.
But
So
the way they test them when they're kids is they have an amplifier try and amplify any powers that they would have.
yeah, any like dormant powers.
So I don't really understand how she was able to hide them.
I don't know. It just says that she forced them back down.
I know. I heard the same thing you did, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense.
No, not a lot of sense, to be honest. Okay, so she's starting to like the Darkling, right? Like during her time there at the little palace. We should also mention that she meets Jenya, the she's the tailor who, because we got to mention that they also meet like the king and queen, right?
Right. Yeah, we did kind of gloss over that bit.
Yeah, because the king and queen, there's obviously a king and queen, but yet the Darkling is like the most powerful being as far as we know. So he works for the king. Sort of. We'll find out. He kind of has like something in mind for the king. But so just know that Jenya is also works with the queen, and she kind of makes Alina see that there is maybe like an underlying plot here against the king and queen.
Yeah, and I this is it's important in the first half of the book, and it never really comes up again, that the Grisha are beautiful people. Like they're usually really pretty, whether they be male or
Sure.
female.
Right. Yeah, because one of the first things she says when she gets there is like she meets or when she meets Ivan, and you know, he's like a hard ass, and he's also a heart render, so he can like kill people with his hands like from far away. But she's like,
Yeah,
I
just
have
like
to
fireballs,
admit,
but he stops their hearts.
right. She's like, I have to admit though that he's like really handsome. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's like a big thing, is that Grisha are generally really good looking people. So is there anything else like important that happens before like the winter ball thing, where
No,
the whole plan like unfolds?
I kind of think like the first third of this book is just like doesn't really need to be there.
Is this what you're talking about? It could be shorter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the whole first part of it is kind of world building stuff. But like I said, it would be better if it was from multiple perspectives and not just from her perspective.
Yeah, I wish they talked more about like what her power really means and what it can really do.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, I mean, and I guess that's why it's a series, probably.
well, yeah, but they don't even really explain like what whatever her sun powers are. She could just like create beams of light that are hot.
Right. Yeah. What's the difference between her and like the people who summon the fire with their hands?
Exactly. Like that's what I mean. It's like what's so special about her, I guess.
Yeah.
And her power doesn't even seem that useful.
Let's see. So basically, a bunch of time goes by. She's at the little palace. We find out that the Darkling wants the stag, and he sends Mal after the stag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Mal finds the stag, comes back and tells them he found the stag. But then we have the winter, whatever it's called, where like all these other emissaries from these other countries show up at their place, and the Darkling's gonna like show what him and Alina can do together.
Oh yeah, they have to put on a performance.
Yeah.
Think of it like they're telling the government basically why they pay them as much money as they do, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So at this like ball type of thing, so her and the Darkling have their little like show, and then this is when they almost bang after this.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Darkling gets called away. And shortly after that, Bagra comes in and throws the lid off this whole thing. Come to find out, Bagra is the Darkling's mother. The Darkling is the black heretic from the past who summoned the fold to begin with. He is the one and only, because up to this point we've been led to believe it was a different black heretic who summoned the shadow fold, but no, he's one and the same. So he's like immortal, basically. He's like
And
been
what
alive
was
forever.
he trying to do by creating the Shadowfold? Do we get to know?
I don't think you find that out in this story. What
Yeah, I
he
don't think so
actually
either.
like. Well, from what I gather is that he's trying to well, the legend has it that the original, Darkling or whatever was trying to create an army or something like that, or come up with some powerful way that everybody would have to listen to them, basically. And
But
this is the
he's
result.
basically already God. He just like cuts a guy in half with that, like when those bandits like first get on them, he like cuts a guy in half with nothing. It's just like dark energy, just like lops him in half.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, he basically can turn darkness into like physical manifestation, which is kind of weird. But yeah, so Bagra is like, look, Alina, the sun summoner, you have to leave. And she's like, why would I do that? She really likes the Darkling at this point, and she thinks Bagra is like drunk or something crazy. And Bagra's like, no, he's gonna use you to keep the Volcra at bay while he manipulates the Shadowfold, essentially. And by manipulate it, see, and this is the thing, is in the book they talk about that the Shadowfold is constantly kind of expanding, but not very fast. But supposedly he's going to manipulate it by he's going to force it to expand faster into certain countries if they don't listen to him.
Right. He's gonna like weaponize it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a much more elegant way and shorter way to put it than I just said.
It just came to me.
That's perfect. So eventually Alina is like, okay, so I guess I do have to leave now. And she ends up like running away from the palace, right?
Yeah, she like
But
sneaks out with like all the people that were performing that night. She like sneaks out with them.
that's
She
right.
sneaks out in one of their wagons.
Yeah, and she makes it into the next closest town. And then she runs into Mal again.
Well,
And
Mal finds her in the woods because she was an idiot and actually went into town. And we should mention that everybody knows who she is because she's the special sun summoner.
yeah, she's basically like a saint.
Yeah, it would be like if Jesus started walking around today, like people would know him.
Yeah. Well, maybe. We still
You're right. He's probably the homeless dude like 2 blocks down.
Anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, so she like goes into town to like buy some supplies, and she like ends up running away from the soldiers because she thinks they're after her, and she like runs into the woods, and she's like setting up a fire, right? And she like looks over her shoulder, and Mal is just standing there, and they don't even talk for like a whole day.
Right. Yeah, and eventually like he tells her that he knows where the stag is. She wants to go south, right? Like to go around the fold or something. But Mal is like, no. Basically, she explains to Mal what the Darkling explained to her about the stag. So Mal is like, we got to go find the stag and we got to get it for you. So you can stop whatever the Darkling's plan is.
Well, I think we know at this point too that the Darkling wants to kill the stag so he can make a powerful amplifier out of it and basically like shackle her to him. So like he would have basically her powers too.
That's right. Yeah, because for some reason she is made privy to that plan.
Yeah, I don't know why she knows that, but she does.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So long story short, they find the stag and try to kill it. And
whoa, man, you're skipping over so much love stuff.
Oh, my bad.
No, go ahead. It's not very good.
That's right, because Mal and her spend a lot of time in the woods at this point together.
Yeah, basically admit that they've loved each other since they were kids.
Yeah, but they find the stag, right? And as they're gonna kill the stag and take, because Alina has to kill it herself to claim its power, supposedly.
Yeah, that's the way the amplifiers work, is like whoever kills the beast that has these amplifiers gains the power of them,
Right.
supposedly.
Yeah. But the Darkling shows up, right? And
Well, she has a clean shot, but she doesn't take it, and she walks up to the stag and like talks to it.
right.
And the stag doesn't run away from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Darkling shows up, fucking murders the stag, and like immediately captures both of them.
Yeah, and then he has his fabricator make a it's like an amulet necklace, right? Something like that. It's like a necklace.
I thought it was more like a collar.
Okay,
like
yeah,
much
that's
heavier duty.
yeah, that makes more sense. But they put it on her, right? And then he basically now has like control over her.
Yeah, and he can essentially like summon her power at his will now.
Right. He can force her to use her powers essentially. And I guess because he's an amplifier and now she has the stag as an amplifier, it's like crazy powerful.
Yes, I assume so. As crazy
Um,
powerful as sunbeams can be.
Right. But how does she get away from him? I don't remember.
So they go back to the castle, and she begs the Dark One. She's like, if you let Mal go, like I'll do whatever you want. I don't care. You can use me whatever way you wish. Just don't kill Mal. And he's like, I'm gonna let the Volcra kill Mal, and you're gonna watch.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
And so they go to do that, but then she, like, as she's watching this, but this part is so poorly explained, but like this is what I understand. The fact that she spared the stag's life actually granted her the stag's power, not the Darkling, even though the Darkling killed it. So technically she takes priority over the Darkling when it comes to using that amplifier. So she's able to break free from his control and like use the light to get away.
Yeah, because don't they go into the fold, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have like Mal tied up, like,
and they
they're
take
just gonna eat him.
Well, they take the ambassadors from some of that were there at the winter thing.
Oh yeah, you're right.
They take some of them because he's gonna demonstrate now. Basically, like he's gonna become a terrorist. He's like, if you don't do what I say, I will use the fold against your country.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's right. That's right. She basically has like an ex machina moment where she's like, oh yeah, I'm in control. And she like,
it is like 3 sentences that explain it, and then they just move past it.
Yeah. It is pretty weird. But then she ends up getting away, her and Mal, which I don't really remember how. I just remember that the book like ends with her and Mal on a ship that's on the real sea or the ocean.
She's able to get away, I think, because like the Volcra are coming to eat Mal, but she like uses her power to like redirect the Volcra towards the Darkling and all them to like cause a commotion, and then it gets away that way, I guess. Because nobody like the other people are not as effective against the Volcra as she is.
Right.
I guess.
I guess too. Even though, don't you think the Darkling would be most at home in the element that he created?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like his powers are so poorly explained because it's almost like he's omnipotent. Like he kind of knew where she was even when she was like running away. Because he's able to find them right when they find the stag. He's like, I knew where you were the whole time. It's like I don't really understand it. Like his powers seem like limitless, and at the same time, like shackled. Like it doesn't when it's convenient, he can't do very much.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, he is like unbeatable until they really need to beat him, and then they can beat him.
Yeah, it's just like Dragon Ball Z, where it's like, this is the most powerful guy we've ever seen. They beat him, and the next week it's like, this is the most powerful guy we've ever
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah. Now this guy is the most powerful.
Yeah, so they
Um,
get away.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the end of the book, though, is her and Mal on a ship on the ocean, which they call the real sea, right? Because
Mhm.
the Shadowfold is called the Unsea.
The Unsea, yeah.
Yeah. For some reason. So
Yeah,
yeah,
why is it called the Unsea?
I don't know.
Because
And
you're supposed to
then
unsee it?
I guess I'm not
I don't know,
sure.
man. I'm grasping at straws.
But yeah, that's the end of it. Is that her and Mal escaped, and obviously her goal is like eventually to destroy the Shadowfold. Like she thinks she can do it, but she has to get stronger now. Like she has to learn how to control her powers more.
And like weaken the Darkling's like clutches on the government, right? Because he's basically in control of everything.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much Shadow and Bone, right? Like, again, I thought it was like I didn't think it was a wasted uh book. I've definitely said before that there have been some wasted books I've listened to, and I don't think this is one of those. I really don't. Um, I just thought it was very in it. It didn't like blow my mind, but it, like I said, I don't think it was a waste of time. And I agree. I think you said that very well. That the same things have been done elsewhere, but better.
Yeah, and that's like I agree with you. It's not a completely wasted time. I did enjoy parts of this book. I know I've been like curmudgeonly this whole time, but there are parts of this that I did enjoy. It's just like the little inconsistencies kind of nag on me, and like the quote unquote magic stuff. I maybe they clear it up in the other books, and maybe I'm just an idiot, but I feel like it was really poorly explained, like what each power can truly do,
Right.
and like the limits.
See, and that actually is what led me to, while I was watching the show, be like, Hard Magic would have made a much better show because it's very clearly in explained in that book, and it's very consistent in that book.
Well, it's
So
consistent. The names are better. The names are more elegant, like, and
yeah.
describe more with less words.
Well, so okay, so let me ask you this. These books, so Shadow and Bone came out in 2012, like at the end of 2012 in like November. Siege and Storm, which is the next book in the series, came out in like June of 2013. So like 6 months later. So do you think that had anything to do with it? That she was like trying to like get these books out pretty quickly in series and didn't leave herself enough room to breathe when she was telling the story?
Probably.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure people fall into that, like, because that's, I would say even a year to come out with a book, because the second book is like, it's almost 12 hours long. So even a
Interesting.
year wouldn't be a lot of time, I wouldn't think, to come out with a book like that.
Or she had the whole series already written. Like she
And
had
that's
written all 3 books already.
and that's possible. Yeah, I don't know. I just know that when I see books in a series kind of coming out in quick succession like that, it kind of does show in the writing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
I totally agree.
that they're just trying to rush a series out. Like, and I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. That's why Game of Thrones works, is because George R.R. Martin is not rushing by any means to put those books out.
No,
So
dude, people are still waiting for the next book
yeah,
for
we're
like
all gonna
10
die.
years.
We're all gonna die waiting on the last Game of Thrones. I mean, that's just what's gonna happen. But it shows in the writing, The
Yeah,
writing
like
is consistent. The world building is just astonishing
yeah,
because he
his
takes the
his world
time.
building is crazy. And
Yeah.
those are the kind of books too, like you listen to them all and then you go back and like in the first book they are mentioning things or like places in later books. But like the way they describe them is insanely consistent. It's like, how the hell did he know they were going to go there?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I really wanted the Shadowfold to be a lot cooler because I was like, oh man, this is gonna be like Area X, and it's like, not really. It's not that mysterious at all.
No, there's really no mystery to it. It's just dark and the Volcra are in there. That's
Which
it.
the Volcra were the humans that were living there.
Oh yeah, we should mention that. Yeah, that when the Darkling created the fold, any humans that were in there were turned into Volcra.
So does that mean the Darkling has the power to turn people into Volcra? Or can the Volcra only exist in the Shadowfold?
They can only exist in the Shadowfold because that's why the Sun Summoner is so strong, because
like,
they
they're like
have
vampires. Because light is toxic.
Right. They can't really be in direct sunlight. So
Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that this got its own show. I'm really genuinely surprised.
So not to bring up too much of the show, but the show is not told directly like from her point of view. We're not only following her. And what's interesting is the Grisha series of books is only 3 books, but there is a 4th book. Let me look at this real quick. Called The Language of Thorns, and it's considered part of the series, but it has different characters in it. And I believe in the show, they brought these characters as well as those ones together, and they make one cohesive story out of it.
Okay.
So it's much more expansive, the show is. So there is that. Basically, though, they did have to take a lot of creative liberties because it does not follow the book 100%.
Well, I mean, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that is Shadow and Bone. Just to put it out there, if you liked our review, if you hated our review, if you think we're dumb, if you think we're great, whatever you have to say, please email us and let us know. We'd love to hear it. kotpl.pod@gmail.com is the easiest way to reach us. And basically now we found out if you just search Knights of the Pageless Library, you can actually find us all over the internet. So
yeah, it's a big step for us.
It really is. We actually take up the entire first page of Google now by ourselves when you search Knights of the Pageless Library. So yeah, if you want to find us on Twitter, YouTube, we're on Reddit @Pageless Library. We do have not a huge footprint, but we are trying to expand it. So
yeah, just trying to get out there. You might be hearing some ads sometime soon, actually, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, oddly enough, we always said this was not about money, and we still firmly believe that. We do this because we want to and we care about this. But anything that we can gain from it is kind of just like the cherry on top. So
But I mean, surprisingly enough, podcasting is not free. And I know that sounds stupid, but it actually has it has costed us money to do this.
Yeah, well, and because we don't, I mean, we can just leave it like as mediocre as we want, but we don't want it to just be mediocre and lame. We would want people to listen to our reviews and thoughts and stuff and have conversations with us about it. So we don't want people to simply turn it off because, oh my God, the audio quality is so terrible in the beginning, So we are trying to make steps to improve pretty much all the time.
I wasn't even talking about like the audio equipment. I would have this stuff for myself anyway. You got to have a nice headset. And just like hosting actually costs money. Like to have your podcast exist on the internet is not free.
Right. But yeah, so like we said, anything that we can do above and beyond just doing the show, whether that's interactions with people or whether it's, if we make a few dollars off of it, it's just all the cherry
Oh,
on top.
it would just be going back into making the podcast better.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not going to be like rolling around in a Bentley because of this.
No, absolutely. Dude, don't kid yourself. We're not even going to be buying a graphics card anytime soon because of
Oh, I
this.
know.
Because graphics cards are like literally gold right now.
Yeah, freaking all those goddamn cryptocurrency.
I know. It's even dropping right now. Anyways, what are we doing next time, Bo?
So the next book we are doing is The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes.
See, yeah, that one's easy to remember.
And hopefully at some point soon, we might end up taking a little bit of a break here because some stuff's coming up soon for us. But at some point, we're going to wrap up Anime Squires, the Samurai Champloo season.
Yeah.
So we will be looking for another anime to do for Anime Squires. So again, we just put that out there. If anybody wants to give us suggestions, please email us or go to YouTube, leave a comment, whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you. We would appreciate
Yeah,
that.
YouTube comments would be a good way too.
Yeah, it's really easy. I try to read and reply to them all as long as they are not insanely weird. So
If we get insanely weird ones,
you get the normal ones that are just like spam ad weird things. So
people put ads in the YouTube comments. Nowhere is safe.
it's just like spam, basically. It's just junk. So
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. You saying weird was like, what does he mean by that?
no. Well, they literally, it's spam, but it looks like it's written in like an alien language. So
Oh, okay. That
you
makes
know what I
sense.
mean?
Yeah,
That's what I meant
those
by weird.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. I was wishing there was like actually weird comments like you guys are pretty purple. It's like what?
Yeah.
That's what I thought you meant. And I was like, what? How have I not heard of this?
You guys sound like a bunch of lampshades.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what does that mean?
Oh god, that would make my day.
Yeah, look forward to Handmaid's Tale, the exciting conclusion to Samurai Champloo. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope to catch you guys in the next one.